The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Now great crowds were traveling with Jesus, and he turned to address them, and he said, "If anyone wishes to come after me without hating his father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, and even his own life, that one cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Which of you, wishing to construct a tower, does not first sit down and calculate the cost to see if there is enough for its completion? Otherwise, after laying the foundation and finding himself unable to finish the work, the onlookers should laugh at him and say, 'Oh, this one began to build but did not have the resources to finish.' Or what king marching into battle would not first sit down and decide whether with 10,000 troops he can successfully oppose another king advancing at him with 20,000 troops? If not, while he was still far away, he will send a delegation and ask for terms of peace. In the same way, any one of you who does not renounce all their possessions cannot be my disciple." The Gospel of the Lord. And in the same way, any one of you who does not denounce all their possessions cannot be my disciple. The very first time I heard this gospel, as a young adult, I was just finished my freshman year in the seminary, and I was at home with my mother in church. And as Father Lynch, my pastor, got to the part of hating your mother and father, I felt this sharp thing in my ribs go, "Don't you even think about it." And when we got home, after having one whole year of theology, I said, "Well, Mom, you got to understand what Jesus is doing. This is Semitic hyperbole. You way overstate the case, and then you kind of backpedal it a little bit. It sounds like some modern politicians today, but you overstate the case, and you make it so you get everybody's attention, and then you try and get to the point." She says, "I don't care about your Semitic semantics." She says, "You're going to respect your mother, and I'm going to know why." But today, we've got Jesus as a rock star. Today, Jesus is talking to the crowds, and the crowds are going crazy because he's just raised the dead, and he's preaching like nobody has ever preached before, and everybody he's touching, he's healing. They want to see some more. But today is about to charge admission. Today he's going to give some cost for discipleship. The great theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer once says there's no such thing as cheap grace. Cheap grace says that you just can go and receive everything because Jesus just loves you and it's all good. And that's true. Grace is free. It's a gift. But there's a cost to being a follower of Jesus. And what does it cost? Everything. Everything. Well, what Jesus is demanding here is for us to forget ourselves, take up our cross, and follow him. What does that mean? That means that everything else is relativized to the divine. Everything else is passing away. All material world is passing away. And when we try to hold on to it, grasp onto it, make it meaningful for me because it's mine, it's my possession, he says, "Is it going to work? Not going to work?" We say, "No, well, why do you do this? Why does God have to be number one?" And that's the truth. God has to be number one. Is that because he's a jealous God? And the answer is absolutely not. The answer is because there is nothing else in the world, nothing, no thing, no person, no event, no name, no title, no nothing can ever set us free and give us the fullness of life when we make that an end in itself. And so the first commandment is to love God, and then as we love God, then we are called to love everybody else and everything else for the sake of God. All of creation. We can love whatever. We can love it just as fully as we possibly can. We just can't make it God. And so we're kind of in a quandary. And the reason we're in a quandary is because we We like our stuff. We do like our possessions. You know, the first word that a child learns, a little Anthony Morrow's first word's going to be, after mommy and daddy, is no. Right? The second word he's going to learn is mine. This is my toy. This is my pacifier. This is mine. We love our possessions. We love our stuff. And I learned long ago a wonderful spiritual therapy that I want to teach you today. And I'm going to ask you to try to practice the therapy because it is liberating. And it has to deal with whatever our possessions is. The last words out of Jesus' mouth today is, you want to be my disciples? You want to follow me? You want life? Then you've got to renounce your possessions. Well, that's hard to do, especially when we love them. So I'm going to ask that you begin by doing this. Start with your stuff. This is how the spiritual therapy, the spiritual exercise works. The reality is that we own nothing. Naked we come into the world, naked we go out. We don't even own our life. Our life is a gift from God. We didn't choose our parents. We didn't choose where we were going to be born. This was all given to us. There's no such thing as a self-made person. It doesn't exist. And so since everything is a gift and the gift comes from God, then who is the rightful owner? God is the rightful owner. So whatever you have, give it back to God. And then once you give it to God, and well, you can use it. You can use the wonderful gifts that He's given to you, but you don't have to worry about it because you're not responsible for it. It's not yours. And I want you to start by doing it with material stuff, because the material stuff is the easiest stuff. I learned this when I was a very, very young priest, and I was a pastor of a little parish in Hopkins Park, Illinois, a very, very poor parish, and somebody had given me a 1965 Volkswagen. This was in 1980. Beautiful little red bug, and I loved my little Volkswagen. I called it Brad. Yeah. And it was my Volkswagen. It was my very first car that I ever had. But I knew the rule, and I said, okay, God. Okay, God. I know everything is a gift from you, so I give this car to you. You do with this car whatever you want to, as long as I can drive it. And I would drive it here and there. And, of course, if anything went wrong with the car, the way we fixed the car was we turned up the radio. So you couldn't hear whatever the noise was. Well, one day I was driving back from Moments, and I was on my way back to Hopkins Park to my little parish, and I was with a seminarian, and I said, you smell something? He says, yeah. He says, does it smell like gas? He says, yeah. I says, look in the back. Does it look like there's so many flames coming out of the car? He said, yeah. We got out of the car. No sooner were we out of the car than poof, the whole thing went up in flames. We got out by the skin of our teeth. I got back to the parish and I was telling the parishioners, I was saying, guess what? My car just exploded and blew up, and I'm as happy as can be. They said, why? I said, it wasn't my car. I didn't own it. I don't own anything. And if I don't, you see, our problem is when we have stuff, we're so afraid someone's going to take it away from us that we build all these walls and locks and securities because we're afraid. But if it's not mine, what's my worry? I've already given it away. If I'm just a steward of it, you know. And those of you who may be people of means, I'm going to ask you, try this. It works really well, even if you're not. Take your what's in your portfolio. What's in your stocks and your bonds? Take it all and say, okay, Lord, this is really a gift. And I don't own it. I'm going to give it back to you now. What do I do with it? How am I to be a steward of it? Now, one of the wonderful things is that we are really good at spending OPM. You know what OPM is? Other people's money. We're really good at spending that stuff. Ask our government. We're good at that. Huh? Well, if it's not mine, if it's God's, I can afford to be generous. I got nothing to hold on to. I'm a free person. So I'm going to really encourage you, take whatever it is that you are clinging to, give it to the Lord. Now that's easy. I think the physical stuff is the easiest stuff. The harder stuff, you know, is the other stuff, the deeper stuff, the self stuff. You know, the next line that Jesus gives us is you not only to reject and relativize our mother and our father and our brothers and our sisters, but your very self. And of course, our self-concept is all we think that we have. Little Anthony Mario is going to be building his little ego, and he's going to be little Anthony Mario. He's going to have his stuff, yeah. And his reputation is going to grow, and he's going to know that he is a very special child, and he's going to guard that reputation. We get a reputation, we guard it. The trouble is that I'm not my reputation. Everything that is relative, everything that is material, everything that is of matter is going to die, and it's going to pass away, even my reputation. I can't take it with me to the grave. It dies when I die. So if I hold on to it and cling to it, it makes me compromise myself. I'm not a very honest person. Pretty soon I have to pretend that I'm something that I'm not. And so the more I hold on to it, the more dangerous my possession begins to possess me. And I'm very careful how I say, because how I'm going to look. I don't remember if you remember the story or not about the French chef who had 3 Michelin stars. And he so loved and was so attached and so identified himself with his 3 Michelin stars that when they took away 1/2 star, he committed suicide. And I thought, and we think, how sad, how insane. But what's the thing that we hold on to? Today we are going to make Mother Teresa a saint. She didn't care about her reputation. She didn't care what she said. She stepped on a lot of toes. She really did. And the reason that she's a saint today is because she didn't care. They asked her, "Oh, Mother Teresa, you're so successful. To what do you assume your success?" She said, "Success. God never asked me to be successful. God asked me to be faithful." So can we let go of even ourselves? Now that's the next level. The hardest level, though, are these relationships. Because I do love my mother, and I do love my father, and I do love my brothers, and I do love them. The question is, are they mine? Do I own them? Do I own them? He wants to say, "Oh, yes, Mommy, you do." But we don't. And that's the hardest part of all. Today in the second reading, we've got somebody who has a possession. His name is Philemon. Philemon's possession is a little guy named Onesimus. Onesimus is a slave. And he's Philemon's possession. And Paul is saying to him, I'm bringing him back to you, but not as a slave. You've got to set him free. You can't hold on to him. Well, it's wonderful for the gospel, but what about us today with our own relationships? Paula Darcy, who's a wonderful spiritual writer, once many years ago wrote a beautiful book called The Gift of the Red Bird. And in that she talked about her own spiritual journey and how she had to let go. Her husband and her son, young adult son, were both killed in a tragic car accident. And she goes on to say that for many months and many years, as a matter of fact, she was bitter and angry at God, and how dare God take away the one that she loves, her son, her husband. How could he do that? And she goes on to talk about how she, through the power of God's grace, she worked through this and became really a wonderful spiritual leader and mentor to many people. Many years later, one of her very, very close friends had exactly the same thing happen to her. Her 21-year-old son was killed in a car accident. And Paula was called to the hospital room. And there was the mother, with her son. And as the tears came down her eyes, she asked Paula a question. She said, I'm going to ask you a question. I need to know the truth. I need to know the truth. Was he ever mine? Was he ever mine? And Paula said, no. He wasn't yours. He was God's. And the mother says, but then I can't lose what I never had. It's all gift. We are to cling to nothing. Nothing. But as we let go of everything, we are given even more. We're given the fullness of life. the fullness of life that's called to be right here, right now.